All right. Shooting. All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. As always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for showing support. And thank you guys for showing love on every single episode. I have a guest with me today, a very special guest, somebody that I've been watching from afar, and the universe connected us, and it just had to be the right time. I have Bryce Spencer Jones with me today. He has a little bit more about him. He has over, I think, 1 million followers on Instagram and TikTok. Somebody who is a mental wellness, mental health. I would consider him an expert as somebody who is going on his journey throughout his own life, learning about himself. And he gives you his perspective, and I truly value his perspective. And I think he inspires millions of people. Bryce, thank you for coming on today. It means more than you know.
Thank you for having me. That's honestly an amazing intro.
I guess the first question I want to know is I asked somebody this the other day, and to know a man, you have to know their backstory. You have to
hmm
know their childhood. You have to know a little bit why they are the way that they are.
hmm
You should be able to go into a little bit, if you feel comfortable, a little bit of your backstory growing up. Obviously, brought the
Yeah.
incredible self-ness, the healing, the overcoming trauma. I'd love to know
hmm
more about.
Yeah. So first off, I'm originally from a really small town in Massachusetts called Wareham, and usually whenever when I tell people about it, I'm like, I'm from Boston because people don't know where it's from. But um, I originally grew up in a really small town, and it was a place where everybody knew everybody. It was hard to actually not be known, and um, ended up having I grew up with my mom, mainly. My dad, he lived up in Boston, which is like an hour away, and I think what I ended up basically learning is just because everybody was so close to each other in Wareham, it was like community is everything. But growing up, I think one of the biggest things for me was I think the biggest thing for me was like I also was like a little bit afraid of being seen just because like everybody knew everybody. And with my family, I think judgment is a big thing. So when it comes down to like actually, mm, one second, I feel like I tried going like a little bit. Um, I tried going like a little bit too in depth at first, but
Okay.
no. Basically, the way I would describe it is grew up in a really small town. Ended up moving to Florida my senior year of high school, and I didn't really know anybody. And at the time, I had pretty bad social anxiety, and um, from there, I think it was just a lot of time that I had to spend with myself, where I was afraid of talking and afraid of being seen, and just with the amount of time that I spent with myself, I think that it just caused me to be more introspective in just the way that I approach everything. Um, and I think I went through a period where I was more so like I don't know, like I feel like I went through a period where I went through the period where I wasn't comfortable with myself, and then I branched out, and like the more time I spent with myself, the more that I actually started to accept who I was, and then that
Mm.
developed into content, and here I am today.
You spoke a little bit briefly about you speak often about anxiety that you had growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and as we grow up, we don't really know how to handle or deal with anxiety because we feel all of this. We feel like the way I could describe anxiety is that it feels like the walls are caving in and your chest just starts to compress and everything
Mm-hmm.
around you starts to become everything circles. And
Yeah.
for some people, obviously, it's different for everybody. But what was it like growing up, being anxious and trying to maneuver around anxiety, and eventually, how were you able to overcome it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just understanding that where I'm at right now, it was, I want to say, like 10 years of just improving every single day, like the 1% podcast. But I think, when I was younger, it was a lot of just self judgment and a lot of things that I had to go through at the time and become aware of. Um, but I think it was just over time learning different things. And so, like, first off, when I started, it was, I think, like law of attraction. That was the first thing I started learning about. And then I started learning about stoicism, which is one of my favorite philosophies today. And then it just evolved into like psychology and relationships and stuff. So it's literally just years of just little things every single day. Not specifically every day, but like um, just branching out and slowly making progress, which is, I think, one of the most important things you should do when you're healing.
Healing. That's a big one for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
myself included. And when sometimes people talk about healing, it sounds like it's a very easy thing, right? Like, oh, we know the things that trigger us, or maybe we don't know the things that
Mm-hmm.
trigger us. For somebody who may be struggling trying to heal in terms of, we could generalize it and just say they just want to heal either family, relationship, personal, self
Mm-hmm.
infliction. Um, what would you say would be a first step in understanding how to heal?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing is just being aware in the first place. I think there's like four steps to learning something. The first step is you don't know what you don't know. The second step is you know but you're not good at it. And then you're good at it with practice, and then you're good at it just naturally. So like your 10,000 hours. I think the first step is just becoming aware, which I think a lot of people, they beat themselves up about it, and um, that's probably the part where you judge yourself the most, when you're just aware but you don't know how to get there, and you see this big road ahead of you, this big mountain, and from there you start practicing basically. So like when I was talking about, I started with stoicism and law of attraction and stuff like that. I started that way, and then over time it just gets easier and easier and easier because you're practicing more and more. And then I think it's just, you have to understand that awareness also isn't everything. I'm going off a little bit of what you said. Awareness is cool, like you can understand why you do things, and um, you can psychoanalyze absolutely everything. I love to do it personally, but it's not the same as just feeling at the same exact time, where you're like, hey, I'm feeling anxiety, for example. I'm feeling this tightness in my chest, like my heart is racing really fast and I'm overthinking right now. And I think it just takes time to just breathe slowly and like think and just feel. So like allowing yourself to be present is a good way to say it too.
Yeah, that's honestly that's something I really struggle with. Maybe you can agree, or maybe you felt this before, but I feel like sometimes I'm too painfully self aware, so I'm over analyzing every move that I make. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not even overanalyzing other situations, but more or less overanalyzing myself. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, and but I'm doing it anyways. And I probably know that I shouldn't be doing it, but I'm still going to allow myself to do it because there's still some unconscious wiring that is still present. That
Mm-hmm.
is just like, you know what, just do it anyways. And I mean, as we all are all human, um, the painfully too self-aware is, I read one time that it's actually a trauma response because you're over analyzing. Maybe when you were
Mm-hmm.
growing up, you were over analyzing how you would talk to a parent, or overanalyzing how to talk to a friend or talking to a
Yeah.
spouse, and it's like you're walking on eggshells because you're overanalyzing everything, or
Mm-hmm.
you had to, just because if you didn't, you never knew what was going to happen. And I don't know if that's something that you can attest, but I've definitely, I know that you like to psychoanalyze, but have you ever
Yep.
overanalyzed yourself or
Of
over
course.
painfully self awareness?
All the time. I feel like my biggest thing is I'll start doing it and I'm like, wait a second, Bryce, like just feel. But no, like I definitely feel that. I think that's a big part of what's made my healing journey get me to this point. And I think that's what has helped me so much is like I don't see it specifically as a curse anymore. I used to. I see it more of like it's something that I'm gifted with, and there's a lot of people that are gifted with it. And you just have to know how to deal with the cards that you're dealt. Um, so I think a good explanation of like just what's helped me with it is there's an idea or basically when people talk about their authentic selves, we try to be this version of ourselves that is pretty much perfect in a way, or like non-performative or anything of that like spec. But a lot of times when we talk about our authentic selves, we're really talking about our ideal selves, which is um, when somebody asks you which way you want to be going and they ask you what your goals are and everything. It's always this perfect version of yourself that doesn't have any flaws. But I think the authentic self is it's everything. So like it's the version of you that if you feel like you had to perform to survive when you were little, or the part of you that is shy when you first meet people and gets anxiety, or the person that's like super passionate about everything, like that's your authentic self. It's literally everything. So I think getting to that point where you can start accepting all these different parts, it makes the whole like hyper vigilance a lot easier, where because I think one of the biggest curses with just being super aware of everything is just you become super judgmental of yourself, and that's something I'm definitely guilty of to this day. But it's also a reminder of like I'm allowed to be all these things. Even if I start judging myself, like there's another part of me that, is super compassionate about myself and just giving all these different points of myself or like different parts of myself a way to be seen. So like when I start judging myself, I'm like, all right, Bryce, like judgmental Bryce, I see you. And then it's like, but I think compassionate Bryce needs to step in. But it's more so just allowing yourself to be everything in the moment.
What was when you started initially posting content, and well, before you started posting content,
Mm-hmm.
what was the initial thought of actually posting content? Somebody who's going through a lot of healing, somebody who may be overcoming some challenges, some adversity, some trauma, and dealing with anxiety. What was the reason that you wanted to step into content creation and kind of share your story and share maybe what you could give to the world?
Yeah, so it was actually an accident. Why I started making content. I just came out of a relationship that wasn't really serving me, and I was like, I just need to make a video about this. I didn't think it was gonna blow up. I didn't think anybody was gonna see it or if people were gonna resonate with it. I kind of just wanted to say what I needed to say, and it was talking about like if you're not working on yourself, I don't think it's like you're not the type of person that I want to be with if you're not working on yourself, because like I think it's so important just like understanding um, what affects you to get to where you're at now, and like how you react to others and how you treat others and everything. So it's like I think self-awareness to a point is like super attractive to me, and that blew up like my first video. And then from there people started asking me questions, and then I think the next one, it was like 2 videos later, the next one was like something about emotional not emotional intelligence. It was like if they wanted to they would type, and I was like, if somebody really wanted to, like they might make an effort, but they might not have the emotional capacity to actually show up for you. And like that started blowing up. And then people just started asking me questions, and it developed into everything. Where just years later, I realized that like I do have a powerful voice where people want to listen and people can resonate with it. And um, I don't know, it's something that I'm still learning and getting used to. Something that I think you don't really realize until you're on the other side of it, where uh, you know, it's you still feel like the same person at the end of the day, and it's something that um, I don't know. It's just a lot of self growth that I think in itself that content creation brings. And yeah, I think I went off on a little rant, but for the
No,
most
it's
part,
all right, brother. It's all right, brother. Don't worry about it.
yeah.
I did see that video as well, and it's funny because that video was in your car, and there was a lot for a while. There was a lot of videos that I did in my car as well. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
started out, um, and it's just something about I really don't know what's up with the car, the some of the car videos, but like I guess people just love because I guess it's like
Yeah,
a
it
conversation
sounds
that you're
amazing.
having. Yeah, it's like I think maybe people feel more safe because they feel like
Mm-hmm.
you're talking to them in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what it is exactly, but I guess it just brings an authenticity to it that
Mm-hmm.
um, that people really do value and people really do love. And I do remember that video, and I think I think that's how I discovered you because I remember seeing that.
No,
That was like a couple of years ago, um, and I remember scrolling on that video, and I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting because
yeah.
that saying if they wanted to they would is so prevalent nowadays where
Mm-hmm.
if this person wanted to be in my life or they wanted to do this, but it was a good perspective to see and hear that some people might not even have the emotional capacity or the emotional
Mm-hmm.
awareness to
Yeah.
even provide that for you. um,
Mm-hmm.
so that was something for me listening to that definitely changed and altered my perspective and kind of gave me more empathy for others. Maybe if they just might not know how to, they might not even know
Mm-hmm.
how to hold space or create that space for you. Um, so that definitely shifted my perspective in that realm. Um, in terms of relationships, though, what is something that maybe after that time, it could be either be after that time that you got out of that relationship, or maybe future relationships that your past self was attracted to that you may be not attracted to right now.
So like, what was the point? Like, what was a shift or?
Yeah, like what would your previous self be attracted to that your current self is not attracted to?
Oh, that's a good question. Um,
Besides the self awareness, which
it's
is something that you brought up.
No, I think that's a good question. I think like what you said, the self awareness is a big thing, but I think the biggest thing for me now compared to like when I first started making content was I was aware of all these things. Like at the time, I think it was still the about the same. Where like um, I had the certain things that I was attracted to, but it was like I also wasn't at a point where I completely understood some things. So it was like with more experience. So like say if there's um say if somebody becomes more like manipulative, I didn't have that experience until technically my last relationship. So like I didn't really know, like I knew of it, but I didn't have the skill set to manage it in a way where like you set some boundaries and they kind of get like overrun. And you have to enforce it in like all these different things. So it's like I think since that last one, I've just more so understood through experience. Like I'm more aware myself of certain things. So it's like if I sense any type of any type of just pattern, I guess, where um I'm trying to figure out how I want to say it. So it's like if I see something that is on the realm of like I don't know, like I think that's a very tricky question to be honest. Where It's like I'm not too sure because I like when I think back to myself, I don't think it's more like I'm not attracted to something that's like it's like I'm not attracted to something that's like similar at the time, but it's more I just learned more through experience and I'm able
Okay.
to just pinpoint things. So it's more refined instead of just being more general.
Mm. If we do a part two in the future, I would want to know if you would think about that answer and come to come to maybe a
Different.
revelation. Yeah,
Yeah, I
come to a
think
revelation in the
especially
future.
making content, I've had so many different changes in viewpoints, just the way that I approach things. Where before I think it was more pinpoint where it was this is the way that I see things. And now it's more I understand that there's so many different opinions and this is just my own opinion and expanding off of that, like I can have a different experience as somebody else and accepting that. So like my content used to be super, super specific and now it's more open to a lot of people where it's being more welcoming to different perspectives. And even in the comments, if somebody comments and they're like, hey, like I don't agree with this, it's like that's okay. You can agree with whatever you want. You can, take this however you want, and that's very valid. And I think I'm just more open minded to things, just with messages in a way.
Sure, sure. I mean, listen, that just goes to show that the growth that if you're constantly
Mm-hmm.
changing, your viewpoints are constantly changing. That you're picking up different perspectives and different maybe ways of
Mm-hmm.
thinking that now you're applying it and making it applicable to the person that you are, and maybe eventually going to share that perspective that maybe you learned.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
that's just a testament to you that you're constantly growing. So I wouldn't even say that's a bad thing, because it's not like you're contradicting. You're allowing that space to
Mm-hmm.
kind of shift or maybe alter what you didn't believe before, and maybe now you believe. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely that's basically the whole point of this podcast is to grow 1% better, and in doing that, that you are applying that to your life. So, what are some things that you are? What are some things that you're currently still healing from?
I would say if I'm talking about things from the past, like one of my things that I'll talk about, like what I did heal from recently, and then things that I'm still working towards. So, before it used to be like what I was talking about with relationships, it was more, I realized that I have a lot of people pleasing tendencies, and that's something that I had to get good at saying no, and just standing on it. And for the longest time, it was just something that I had to keep saying no to things, and like I had to sit with the uncomfortability of just like I feel really bad. Um, and then I think that like the more that things started progressing, um, it started transitioning into more just like allowing myself to be seen. So like where I didn't want to be seen in the bad light of, saying no to people and like being seen as a bad person. It was, how do I actually want to be seen, or like how much do I want to be seen? Because growing up with, social anxiety, you kind of just want to sit back and sit in the background a little bit and let people kind of just like not necessarily stand in front of you, but like let other people take the light. So I think the biggest thing for me that I'm still healing from is just allowing myself to be seen, even though like um, I'm at the point where like I've done different appearances and like I've spoken at different events, and it's still a work in progress. And I think that's just a testament to like 10 years ago, I was in a different spot where I couldn't talk to anybody completely. And now I'm at a point where I could talk to people. I could go up to people and just be like, hey, like, I really like your shirt. Where'd you get it from? And like, I could have conversations with people and have deep conversations. Like I've met so many people that just randomly don't know anything about them. And we just have a deep conversation about the universe. But I think, it's still a work in progress. So I'm not at my ideal self. I don't think you're ever going to get to your ideal self, but it's something to work towards. And I think going off of like a one of my favorite speeches. It's I think Matthew McConaughey. I forget what movie he won Best Actor or something like that, and he was talking about himself in. No, somebody asked him. They were like, "Who's your hero?" And he was like, "It's me in 10 years." So the guy came back 10 years later, and he was like, "So are you your hero yet?" Or he was like, "My hero is me in 10 years." So he was like, "Are you your hero yet?" And he's like, "No, like my hero is me in 10 years." And he was like, "I'm never gonna reach that. It's just something that I have to work towards, and it's something to strive to." So I think it's still a work in progress where like I'm still wanting to be seen more, and that's just the direction that I want to go in more. Um, and it's something that it's a little bit uncomfortable still, but I'm slowly making progress.
Yeah. Hmm. I do remember that speech. That speech is Matthew McConaughey. You just feel like he just always knows exactly what to say. The right
Mm-hmm.
point in time. He's just like Denzel Washington. They know exactly what to say, and
Yeah,
exactly
it's
how
so smooth
to.
too.
Yeah. All of a sudden, you're just up there, thousands of people, and you're just dropping incredible life gems. But that speech, for anybody who doesn't know, definitely look up Matthew McConaughey's speech. When you listen to it, it's definitely mind changing, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely can alter your perspective. Speaking also speaking in front of 1,000 people, I know that you did a panel. I think it was at
Mm-hmm.
Was it at Harvard? It was at an Ivy League
Yeah,
school. Was that Harvard?
yeah. So they invited I think 25 creators out to Boston, and we were doing like a whole thing on mental health, and I did the men's mental health panel. It was a live broadcast and everything, and I was super nervous, but it went pretty well, and it was a really great experience. We were there for I want to say like 3 days, something like that. So yeah, it was something
Talk about a
amazing. It
full
was an
circle
amazing trip.
moment.
Yeah, I know. Something I'm definitely
Literally
proud
full
of.
circle.
Yeah,
What was did you feel like you had imposter syndrome? Not only
of
in that
course.
event, but do you still feel like you have imposter syndrome?
Of course. I think it's something like when you talk about when we think about the future, our future selves, we think that we don't have any anxiety or any fears or we think we're basically perfect in a way. And once you get there, it's like you realize you're still human, you still have fears. It's just it might have changed a little bit because of your experiences where you're not afraid of things as much. But one thing that I definitely learned from that experience is like all the creators there, they were like Harvard. What's going on? Like, why are they reaching out to us? We're creators, but um, it's something that you always have in a way. Like you hear about famous artists. I don't know about Drake, but like famous artists, you go out and they're getting ready to go on stage. And like J. Cole, I've seen a thing where he's saying he meditates before because he gets nervous sometimes. Um, so it's something that it's part of the human experience where you have all of these different things, and uh, it's just accepting all the different parts of you.
Yeah, that must have been an incredible feeling to speak at especially a prestigious school like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you initially don't have a background in understanding the psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Photography is something that you also do. Um,
Yep.
so it definitely, I honestly, to be real, I probably feel hella nervous too, knowing that it's. But also too, it's like you're there for a reason, you know. Like they
Yeah.
wouldn't
Exactly.
Harvard, especially, wouldn't just hand pick somebody, you know, if they didn't feel like they were capable or able to
Mm-hmm.
deliver. Um, and being able to speak about something that you've already been speaking about for a couple of years now and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of present it to the world um, definitely shows, you know, just not only the work that you've done within yourself, but that they believed in you, and especially from a school like that, and you know, an opportunity like that. um, I do wonder what it is like to speak at a panel though. How many other people were there, and kind of what did you learn from the other people at
Uh,
that
so
panel?
it was all the creators. We were there for a couple days, and then it was also open to the public. I think the studio maybe had like 50. people, so it wasn't too big in the studio. It was just also a live broadcast for their YouTube channel.
Okay.
But it wasn't too big, but it was also people that I like all in the front. I was telling everybody after, I was like, I feel like I was so confident in doing it because everybody that I made friends with was in the front, just like cheering me on, and it was just this most supportive group ever. So I was like,
Yeah.
this place I want to be to do it.
What would you say is I know you have your own podcast, the Unstuck podcast. What would you say
Mm-hmm.
is some of the next steps that you want to, in terms of your evolution as a content creator, as somebody with a voice? What are some of your next steps that you want to be able to achieve, or some ideas that you may be working on to get to that next level?
Yeah. So I ended up releasing a free journal. It was like a 7-day journal. I'm making a full 30-day one right now. And then also my podcast, I want to still keep it the same. So like anybody that doesn't know the podcast, it's more like short form. So everything is kind of, I would say kind of story based, but it's all based on mental health. And I want to say the longest one's like 5 minutes. So it's all super short and you can get through all of them in like a day. But I want to start doing more episodes for that, which I already have a few planned out. And then from there, I want to start doing interviews. So probably like maybe 30 minutes to an hour long compared to the whole 5 minute, just adding that on top of it. Um,
Sure.
I've been saying for forever that I wanted to do a YouTube channel and do more long form content. So that I think that's where I want to go next. And let me see. I think one more thing is I want to make a Patreon account, which
Mm,
is based on like just emotional grounding in general. I think those are the biggest steps right now.
okay. The long for I think this is the year of the YouTube. I think that YouTube
Oh
was
yeah.
gone for a while, and I think I've been seeing a lot of creators trying to get back onto YouTube just because
Mm-hmm.
of I think the monetary value in the long term, or just the value it could bring long term. Because these apps are so unpredictable. Like TikTok could be gone tomorrow. Anything
Mm-hmm.
could be gone tomorrow. So YouTube seems to be like a very good foundation, um, in terms of just kind of establishing yourself and presenting yourself. But I definitely, I'm all for it, bro. I think you should definitely try to partake in the long form content.
Thank you.
At least for me, I've been trying to receive feedback on the how does like the hour videos do, and I mean, if you're in the gym, if you're doing like cardio, at the gym, or you're
Mm-hmm.
going for a walk outside, people are able to digest it. Um, and I don't believe like radio stations are going to be a thing in like 5 years. I think it's just going to be all
Yeah.
podcasts and long form content. Um,
Yeah.
so definitely make sure that when you feel like the time is right to take advantage of the long form content.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it.
Of
I
course.
heard that basically like the long form content, a lot of people are going towards like something that you can do something and have it play in the background. So like what you were saying, a podcast is perfect where it's just like somebody can put it down on the counter and like wash dishes or something and listen to it. So it's definitely a community that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've had it on my vision board. It's just I haven't made the jump yet. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I have some ideas planned out. It's just a matter of getting all the fine details down.
Yeah. Why did you want to? Why did you name the podcast Unstuck? Unstuck yourself.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure what to name it, and I always say like I have a personality that's very like it can come off as very serious, and then I have a part of me where it's like I'm just I have like a if I'm comfortable with you, I don't have a filter. Originally, it
Yeah.
was supposed to be. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, yeah, bro.
Yeah. So originally, it was supposed to be called the Unfuck Yourself podcast, and I was like, that doesn't sound very PG. Let me just call it the Unfuck Yourself podcast, and I just I went with that. But it works. It definitely works. Where if you're feeling stuck, you can work and get yourself unstuck. So
Okay. I'm interested to know. We talked about healing. We talked about relationships, but why mental health? Why was it such an attraction for you? Why was mental health such an attraction? attraction talking point for you. And in some of your videos, you always say to prioritize your mental health.
Hmm.
Was that maybe something that you needed when you were younger to prioritize that more? Maybe even still need.
Yeah, so I think the best way I can describe my content is it's just things that I've personally gone through. And I've always been the type of friend where if somebody has a problem, they're always, always, always just coming to me and asking me questions. So it's something that I feel like I've had a lot of experience, not from like a mental health professional perspective, but just giving people advice in general. Um, and I think when I first started doing content, it was more just talking to my younger self. It wasn't even talking to an audience. It was like, this is what my younger self needed to hear. So let me just say this in the perspective of like I'm talking to my younger self. So like anytime you hear me say the word you, I'm physically talking to my younger self. And
Mm,
it just branched out where I was able to start talking to a larger audience, and like it, I'm just grateful for everything that I got
yeah,
so far.
sure. I guess this is more of like for me, this is a personal question that I want to know, and because something that I struggle with is the overproductive community. Like I generally do struggle with. I never feel like I'm satisfied, and I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
always need to do more. And I'm unsure where the fine line between I need to do more, but I also need to show myself compassion. And I'm trying to like navigate between those two roads, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to get there. Um, and I know probably people struggle with this as well in a community or in a world where we're comparing and contrasting our lives from other people's lives. What would you say to me in terms of like trying to identify? Well, obviously it's identified, but how would you tell me to overcome that sort of mindset?
I would say first off, the I think the biggest thing that just holds people back is just the judgment of you feel like you need to be somewhere instead of just allowing yourself to be somewhere. Um, so for me, as an example, I'm the same exact way where I feel like I need to be doing something, and like my friends will be like, hey, like let's hang out. And I'm like, but I need to be working, because I learned when I was younger that like in order to be accepted, you have to get good grades, you have to do all these different things. And it kind of just carried over. So one thing that I try to do a lot is just allow myself, even if it's not frequently, I just try to find stillness. And um, meditation has been a good thing for me. I haven't done it in a minute, but I know my default in a way is like this super productive person that just needs to always be doing something productive, and like I need to get all my work done, and before I do anything fun I need to just focus and keep my head down. But I think the biggest thing is just allowing yourself to be where we talked about earlier, where it's like you can be aware, you can do all these things, but if you're not feeling it, then you're not actually healing it. Um, so I have I'm a big believer in like we're all made of mind, body, spirit. And when people talk about alignment, it's understanding that you're in a perfect balance of all three. So I'm really good at the mind part where I'm just always in my head and I'm always thinking, and I'll always be, judging myself in a way and like telling myself I need to be here and I'm not here and I need to do this. And then my body tells me just be, just rest, just take it slow, because the body's slow. Um, the body doesn't really know time. This is why we have like PTSD and anxiety when we experience triggers and different things. And you have to kind of separate yourself from your mind and bring it down into your body, where you're allowing yourself to just be. And I think I'm saying be a lot because that's literally what it is. That's the answer to everything. It's just, well, not everything, but just slow down a little bit where you can, if it's painting, if it's meditation, if it's maybe you need to go for a run. Um, I think it's just allowing yourself to slow down and experience those things.
Yeah, meditation does do that. Meditation is an incredible tool that allows you just to just kind of sit with those feelings, sit with those emotions, and kind of help you analyze them to a better degree. I feel like a lot, especially as men, if we actually understood the value of meditation and
Mm-hmm.
understood the value of being present and just being, I think there would be a lot less toxic masculinity in the world. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that we're in a age where we're learning from social media that there's certain things that are okay, and
Yeah.
we're following the trends, and we're following, okay, well, this guy said I should be like this, or I should be an incredible, stoic, where I show no emotion, or I'm not human, where I show myself that I have none of these human abilities. And meditation definitely, as Ram Dass would say, a very great spiritual teacher, is that meditation is one of the vehicles for incredible self awareness, and to be aware. With awareness comes learning. So as you're learning and sitting and meditating, you're getting better understanding about yourself that maybe you didn't know previously. And there's also other various methods such as journaling, or maybe even exercise and stuff like that. But I definitely kind of want to know your thoughts on this, the toxic masculinity where the men aren't allowed to uh, feel the emotions, feel human.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely want to know your thoughts on what's your viewpoint on stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it has to do with just expectations. Where from when you're really young, you're told when you start crying. I don't even know how young, but it's like, say you're 4 or something like that, and somebody tells you like, hey, you're a guy, like you can't be crying all these, you can't be crying. And I think it's something that we first have to be aware of, where it's, this is going on, where it's an expectation where you can't feel, and understanding that like guys and girls, they both cry, they both experience trauma, um, they both feel hurt and scared, and you're not less of a man because you're feeling any of these emotions. And if you have to cry, if you have to find community, if you have to do any of these things, um, and find support, like asking for help is a big one. It's okay to do that. It's okay to not know where you want to go next. It's okay to not have a clear direction right now. It's okay to have problems with your mental health. And there's so many things in society that we don't normalize just because you're a guy, where they tell you that you have to kind of. I think the big one is that you just have to, take it in and do your job as a man and like provide and all these things. But I think what matters is understanding that you have to give yourself the space in order to be who you are. And I think a big part of that space is getting rid of the voices outside of yourself and getting rid of the judgment that you give yourself, and just branching off from there.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. That's definitely. I think it's ages 0 to 7 that you learn the most. I think that's like the most pivotal time, they say, where you
Mm-hmm.
learn all the behaviors, um, in terms of what you see from your parents, the romantic relationship dynamic, but also the personal behaviors that you'll develop over time. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe, because I think I read it in a psychology book one time, and my minor is psychology, so I remember talking about that a lot. Um, it's interesting. It's interesting how it is such a pivotal time in that, uh, and how you're so unaware at that time. And as you grow up, you realize that, for me, the way I look at it sometimes is that when we were younger, we wanted to be older, and then when we were older, we wanted to be younger. And I
Hmm.
don't know if you felt that, but I've definitely felt that um, all the time, where it's like getting turning 25 this year. I wish I could just be younger, 5 more years, and so many things that I might have changed, and so many decisions that I might have made differently during that time. But the butterfly effect, it all gets you to where you need to be right now. Um,
Exactly.
what are some of the mindful methods you spoke about meditation? What are some of the mindful methods that you take into gaining more self awareness, but also just some things that you do in your everyday life um, that help you bring peace and help you kind of maybe recollect on your thoughts or kind of bring you back to self?
Yeah. So I think it's a I would say it's probably three main things. One is definitely the awareness part, where you can't do a lot of things if you're not aware of it in the first place, and I think that's a good starting point. And then I think it has to do with feeling it in your body, because that's another thing where even in meditation, like I was talking about meditation, I stopped trying to reflect as much in meditation, and I started just allowing myself to feel. So like I'll start off where I'll start breathing for like 20 minutes, just breathing exercises, focusing on my breath for 20 minutes, and then I'll just feel everything. So like everything that I'm reflecting on, I'll go through it, and whatever emotions come up, I'll just allow myself to feel it. If I have to cry, if I have to, feel angry about it, I let myself feel it for like another 20 minutes. And I sit in that and I try not to judge myself. And from there, I'll probably just reflect on it in the end. But I think allowing yourself to just be in your body is one of the biggest things for me. And then um, from there, I think it's just your perspective is also another thing, where you can't really control other people. You can't control anything other than yourself. And one of my favorite books, it's a super simple book, but it's like 365 Days of Meditations by Ryan Holiday, and it talks about like everything stoicism. And I remember one of the first pages. It talks about if there if you're at an airport and there was a layover, and it was because of weather or something like that. It was delayed for 4 hours. You either have the option of um, going and yelling at the flight attendants and making a big fuss, or you can go and get some food. You can make some friends. You can do some work. You can take a nap. You can do all of these different things. So I think it's understanding that like a lot of things just aren't in your it's not in your control, and just letting what's not in your control just go out the window. So like if somebody starts um, doing something that I don't like obviously communicate it. But if they don't stop doing that, then it's like that has nothing to do with me. Where you can separate yourself and like do all these different things. Or if something that would be like a minor inconvenience. So like say if you're in traffic or something like that, it's like you can't get out of traffic. You can either just like put on some good music and um, or you can call somebody or do something else. But it's just a matter of knowing where to put your perspective in all these things.
Yeah, perspective is a big thing. Perspective is definitely a big thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 24 years old. If you can go back to when you were 24, what are some pieces of advice that you would give me?
I would say I'm trying to think of where I was at 24. I'm only 27, so a couple years back. I would say probably the biggest thing that I've learned recently is just allowing myself to understand where my judgment comes from. A lot of the judgment that I give myself that holds me back, especially somebody that's so, um, you know, just I analyze everything, is understanding that the judgment that I have wasn't something that I directly am giving to myself. It's something that was given to me at a different time by somebody else, and um, I'm kind of just holding on to it because I turned it into my truth. And I think the biggest thing is just understanding that your judgment doesn't have to be taken as the truth. It's just your judgment. It's a part of you, like I said before, like it's your judgmental self. It's for me, that's the judgmental part of Bryce. And he's having a hard time because he's triggered by something, and it's valid because that's a part of me. But I think you have to look at the whole picture of like, I have a part of me that's gonna accept me for who I am. I have a part of me that's, afraid of the future, and I have a part of me that is excited for the future, and just allowing all those perspectives to come together and allow myself to be as authentic to who I am while being understanding of who I am, and just allowing myself to step forward and keep moving forward. And even though I'm afraid, just like keep pushing forward.
Yeah. What was the switch for you to kind of be your most authentic self? What was there something that maybe occurred or happened? What was the realization that you were like, fuck it, I'm just going to be the most authentic version of myself?
I don't think it's something that it's like a switch. I think it's just a little bit of change over time, where it's been 10 years, maybe even more than that, where I've been on my healing journey. And it's just little tiny steps every single day that has gotten me to, where I'm at. Um, and I think one of the best ways to explain it would be, um, you think of lily pads on like a pond or something like that. And you think of like a frog jumping on the lily pads, and it keeps going further into the pond. And then once it gets to the other side, it can look back and see all the different lily pads it hopped over. But like as it's hopping over, it's not looking behind it. It's literally just looking forward to the next one. And it's just an analogy of, there's so many different steps you take in your life. And it's not necessarily a switch for me. It's just something that slowly changed over time. And it's something that I think, especially healing, it takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of tiny steps, and it's a lot slower than we would want it to be. But I think eventually what's meant for us will get to us. I think that where we're meant to go, we'll get there eventually, even if it's different from what you want to be at. Like maybe down the line, I might not be making content. I might be doing something else in like 10 years. Um, and I don't know what that step is yet, but like I can see what's in front of me, and I could take that leap onto the next lily pad. Um, so I think it's just a matter of, just even if you're afraid of what's on the next lily pad, just hop to it.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I got two more questions for you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the next question is something I think about often. It's a pretty deep one. If you had we talked about the past version of self, but if the fast forward 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
if that version of yourself wrote a letter to you of the current version right now, what advice or insight would you hope to find in it?
Mm. I would hope to find that I don't really want to say that it's something that has to do with my direction. I think it's more in 10 years. I think that I would want to see myself now as somebody that just allows space for who I am and who I'm turning into. It's not necessarily that I want to be somewhere, even though like I do, but I think it's more just seeing myself as this version of myself that I don't know what the future is, and I don't know who this person is in 10 years. I might not even like the version of myself that I am in 10 years. I might love the version of myself that I am in 10 years. I don't know. And I think that it's something that like I think who I am in the future, I just want them to be proud of just the way that I'm handling things. Like if it's with other people, or just the way that like I'm taking steps and all that. As far as like, I don't know if I'd want to understand, like, I don't know if I'd want to have like advice for my future self, to be honest, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that eventually I'm going to get to my future self anyways.
Yeah. Hmm. It's definitely something to think about. The only reason why I wonder about it a lot is like I always wonder who I'd be or who I would become. You know, who would this
Mm-hmm.
version of like like you said, would I be a completely different version? Like would I not even want to do podcasting anymore? Or like what
Yeah.
endeavor would I be on? What would I be doing, you know? And I think I'm the type of person that doesn't really look in the past, but I'm more somebody that looks into the future more than I look
Mm-hmm.
past myself, just because that already happened. There's nothing that I can change. But
Yeah.
being so incredibly militant and very particular about what I do to prevent a different outcome in the future is something that I often do think about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good thing and a bad thing, I guess. Um, but what is something that you want to? Last question is: what is something that you want to become 1% better in this year?
Ooh. Um, I think it has to do with just public speaking in a way. Like, I want to do more public speaking. I want to um, do more podcasts, do more guest appearances, just things that allow myself to be seen. Because I think that's something that, I've taken a lot of steps to be at this point where, like, 10 years ago I couldn't be on a podcast. I wouldn't be here right now. And I think it would be just allowing myself to be more available to just be seen as who I am. And um, if it's the part of me that's, afraid of everything, and the part of me that experiences anxiety, or the part of me that is just super bubbly, and the part of me that, is just super inspired, I want all of that to be seen. And just allowing myself to be there, I think.
Yeah. Hmm. Where can the people find you on social media?
Yeah. So on TikTok, it's just Bryce Spencer Jones, Bryce Spencer Jones. On Instagram, it's the Bryce Spencer. And then if you want, my podcast is the Unstuck Yourself podcast. And I think that's it
Lovely.
for now until YouTube pops up.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a conversation with you.
Of
I
course.
definitely do value the interactions like this. I'm not very big on, the usage of social media, but when it's used for purposes like this and being able to connect to with people that I thought 2 years ago I'd never be able to connect to,
Mm-hmm.
it means a lot. So thank you for believing in me, coming in on this podcast and allowing me to have some of your time to be able to speak and have some conversation with you.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me. First off, it's crazy how the universe works. We're like two
Yeah,
years later. Yeah.
yeah, that is crazy. Definitely would love to do a part two in the future. As I know that you're around my neck of the woods. You're around my neck of the woods sometimes. Definitely would love to
Mm-hmm.
do when the schedules line up a part two, and kind of maybe speaking about what we maybe learned about ourselves and learned about our journeys in a future time from now for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. I'm down. I'll let you know when, because you're in, like, what part of New York?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Okay. Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad, he's in Jersey City, so I think you can catch like a ferry over there. Maybe, I'm not too sure.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
anything, well, I could be. Wouldn't. I've never been to Jersey City, so I'd love to come out and see a little bit. But I appreciate you. To everybody who's listening, thank you guys for rocking with us. Thank you guys. Hope you guys found this valuable. Um, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to grow today. This is the 1% podcast. I'm out.